And the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act that was passed by Congress in 2010. And that in the next few slides, we'll see some of the information related to how we've increased the whole grains and more fresh produce. I will say in regards to the fresh produce in our elementary schools, we're still working out staffing to actually bring our salad bars back to our elementary schools, but we do have salad bars in some of our secondary schools. You know, the early onset of obesity and related issues has definitely increased the need for more school food reform nationwide as well. With the national school, our nutrition of school food programs, there are the 5 components. We have our fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and our milk products. And one thing I did want to mention with the dairy products, we do have the option, if a student does have an allergy, to provide either a soy milk or a lactate milk, or we also have a ripple milk. We are a nut-free district, so we would not be able to provide like an almond milk, or a cashew milk, since we are a nut-free district. With the passage of our new wellness policy, we have worked in language related to water and also seat time as well.
Actually, we're about to release a report on labor, wages, and compensation for school nutrition workers across the state of Wisconsin. So we were able, through the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition, to get about 25% of school food authorities across the entire state to participate in this. And the reason why it's really important is that school food programs really can't serve very healthy food if they can't cook from scratch and attract a well-trained and qualified workforce. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that actually every single school district outside of Madison pays what we would call low wages or poverty wages to their workers, in terms of not only what the hourly wage is, but especially if we factor in the fact that, hey, sweetie, that most of these jobs are actually part-time. So in our study, we actually found that hourly work, 4 out of 5 hourly workers are actually part-time in school nutrition programs across the state. And that doesn't even account for the fact that most of these positions are actually 9 months. So when you factor in the seasonality, it's an even bigger hit in terms of what workers can actually take home through these programs. So one of the things I'm most excited about right now is working with the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition to really try to think about how can we improve labor, wages, and compensation for the people who work in our programs, because if we don't invest in them, we really can't make high quality school meal programs. So I'm really excited about this trajectory of really trying to advocate for universal free school meals. I think that's really important, but I see it as only one major strategy that we really need to be pursuing to have really comprehensive school food reform that really makes school food the best it can be for our students and our families and our communities. So we look at pre-pandemic participation rates in school meals in high schools. It's pretty not good, I would say. And so that's one of the reasons why with this team at MMSD, we're really focusing in first on the high schools to try to understand how the cafeteria environment, the menus, all the things that the district could potentially change. How maybe some changes there that would be feasible for the district could really help improve things for students. So actually today, one thing that I think is a bright spot is through actually a Zoom conversation much like this one, I was connected with Emily Sonneman, who's the Family and Consumer Education instructor at East High. And she and her students partnered with Josh and his team at MMSD. And I know Ursula provided a lot of information for them as well to help them understand the dietary constraints for the USDA school meal patterns. And the culinary students actually designed multiple school meals and had a competition and chose the winning one. It's actually going to be served today at East High. I think personally, I've seen a lot of school food programs across the country, and it really makes a big difference to have community support and also to have food service directors who really have a strong vision for what they want their program to become. And I think that's one of the reasons why I feel really optimistic now, because I think Josh Perkins really has a strong vision for doing scratch cooking, for bringing more culturally relevant meals into the district, and for addressing some of the labor challenges that are certainly not unique to MMSD. So I think one of the things that we're trying to do now to find comparably sized districts, Minneapolis is an example that I know Josh has already visited, to try to understand some of the different transition pathways that districts have gone through. And one of the things I'm planning to work with his team on over the course of the upcoming semester is really just figuring out what exactly the needs would be, and what a cost figure could look like. And then I think we also have to figure out different ways to really build community support. So one thing that I'll share very briefly that I think was successful in the Austin Independent School District was this idea of a collective impact campaign, where essentially you figure out some of the things that are highest priority like changes for students and their families in the district. And then you sort of calculate, well, what would we actually need in terms of increased participation to make something like that financially feasible? Or maybe it's like one-time investments. And a lot of times, some of these things can't actually be feasible if you're able to increase the participation rate by enough. So if people are willing to sort of buy into the vision, you can kind of get the resources to actually accomplish that vision.
So for our project, we looked at a lot of different solutions, and the first possible solution that we thought of was in-school kitchens.
So another solution that we came up with was creating a contract or agreement with a local organic farm to provide healthy organic food to Bennington schools.
All right, so another solution we considered was school gardens. Ultimately, we decided this wasn't the best solution just because there was too many cons that outweighed the pros.
Our favorite solution was a campaign to encourage school lunch participation. This will give families who don't qualify for free and reduced lunches to purchase lunches and to participate in crowdfunding. This also means that the government and district would not need to dedicate extra funding to the school lunches. And we all know that it all boils down to like money. So it's very important that we don't need extra funding.
What is the increase in lunch program participation levels needed for there to be a meaningful impact on funding? So any and all of our panelists, have you guys thought about a goal for we want to increase participation by this month? Do we have a target in mind or a best, I guess, best case scenario for what we would want to aim for?
At this point, we do not have a target goal right now. This school year, number one was to make sure that we were able to get the salaries passed. And then number two, making sure that we hire qualified staff. It does take time to, of course, make sure that our staff are trained. Like I mentioned in the presentation as well, we are doing some things. It may seem like it's a very, very, very slow process, but number one, we want to make sure that it's done correctly. I did see a couple things in the chat about the salads. If you let me know what schools that did not receive the salads, because that's something that we actually prep every day. So if you can let me know about that, so we can figure out where the breakdowns are and to actually figure out why the schools are not receiving the salads, that would be helpful as well.
Answer is one that a lot of people probably won't find very satisfying, because it's basically like it's complex and it depends what you want to try to do. So some things I think are a lot less expensive and easier to implement than others. So one thing that I mentioned in the chat, I think Josh has been pretty clear about in our conversations as we've been working with the Rocket team to talk about the high schools, is that there's actually a lot more that the high schools and middle schools could potentially do, because they're already set up to do a fair amount of their own cooking, versus the elementary schools, which are really set up to accept and rewarm those pre-packed meals that are produced in the central kitchen. So there's a lot more flexibility for broader scale changes, I'd say, with the middle school and high school menus without making a big investment in infrastructure. So those things tend to be more, I think, feasible because they're a little bit more about like the ingredient cost. And one example that I know has been talked about recently is organic Greek yogurt, just as an example. But a lot of other districts that I've seen, and this is true for Austin Independent School District, which is the one that at least initially caught my attention with using this collective impact model. They asked, like, what are the most important ingredients to you all in the community? Like, what are your priority things that you want to see change? And the three things that they identified were organic milk, organic vegetables, and grass-fed beef. So they did cost calculations for those particular products. And I think that's kind of like what you end up having to do a little bit is you have to decide, well, what are the things we want to try to change and what deficit do we have between our current budget and what that would actually cost that we could actually offset through that increase in participation. And all of that's assuming that you really are only working with the reimbursements from the federal government and potentially state government if you're lucky enough to be in a state that makes additional contributions, and whatever direct payments students are making. So those students who don't qualify for free or reduced meals, or if schools are serving any a la carte options, those kinds of revenue streams.
What we've heard is that people make up their mind about school lunches when they're in elementary school or middle school very early on, and then it's hard to change behavior with high school students. And I just wanted to see, like, what are your thoughts? Like, can we change minds at the high school level, and what does it take? Do you feel like, yeah, that people just kind of make up their mind in elementary school and then they're packing their lunch the rest of the way? Yeah, what are your views on that?
Yeah, so for me personally, right, in elementary school, I didn't think school lunches were bad. I actually quite enjoyed my lunches. I think there were like some scenarios where it was a little bad, but it never overtook it. And in middle school, that's when I started to realize, like, I don't think I like these school lunches. But like, I'm still like, I feel like a lot of people are still like open-minded about like what we eat, because it also will help if it's better, right? If it tastes better, I feel like everyone else would want to eat the school lunch instead of going out and like spending a lot of money on like other on other lunches from like fast food restaurants, because East High School is located like around a lot of fast foods, and I feel like, and it's like a food desert, right? So we I think a lot of students would be open to like having that as an option, like better school lunches, right? And I feel like it could convince a lot of students.
And I also think for the people who are more stuck in the school lunches are bad. I know at least like a lot of my friends, I used to get school lunches and they would always like tease me or whatever, because like, they weren't very good. And I think a lot of it is just talking about it and just talking about the good things about it and like making them healthier. And I feel like destigmatizing makes it sound like more of a problem, but yeah, kind of just talking about it in a way that isn't. That's what helped me. Like now my friends get more school lunches because I was like, they're really not that bad, even if they were.
And even like, I feel like a good example is like with the taste testing, like the burritos that we were mentioning that Ms. Solomon was showing, like she convinced like a whole bunch of students to like try it out, and a lot of people liked it. So now it's like a school lunch for today. So I think it's still like very much possible to convince a lot of students.
Yeah, and adding on to what Stephanie said, like part of like high school and middle school is like people like to be independent, and so if you include them in the like choosing of school lunches, it makes you want to eat it a whole lot more, because independence is a really big thing that people value, especially in high school and middle school. Yeah, so I think that's important.
I guess I'll just add on to kind of what like Naomi and Stephanie were saying, where we're raising awareness that school lunches are changing, I think is also really important, because if people don't know that what they're going to eat now is going to be different from what they're eating for the past several years, they're going to be like, ew, no, I know I don't like that stuff, I'm not going to try that again. So here at East, adding more onto the burrito bowls, they were on the intercom in the morning announcements, just like mentioning, hey, like we've got this new program going on, come down to lunch on Wednesday today to try it out. Like, don't go to Qdoba, come here. We got a burrito bowl for you to try. And so I think kids will hear that and they'll say, oh my gosh, like that seems cool. It's changed. It's designed kind of like what Iris was saying, by students here at East, my peers, and they understand that school lunches haven't been great in the past, and they've understand what they've changed. And so I think that really encourages a lot of people to come and try the new lunches. So that was part of it too.
And Brian Squire, I use he, him pronouns. I work at Second Harvest. I just shared a link in the chat. Emily Sonneman's doing some really amazing work at East this year around reducing stigma in the school market. It was a school market that last year the East staff came to us at Second Harvest and said, we don't think we can really support it anymore. It's not getting used. There's no food going out through it because students don't want to access it. And so they were at 0 pounds they were getting from us, to go out every week. They're up to around 4,000 pounds a week now that they're getting out through their school market, both snacks and food for students to take home. And so she's doing a lot of really amazing work there. And especially from a high school model, I think is a great opportunity to kind of study and chat with her about some of the ways that she's doing that intentionally that can be replicable across our entire area, especially at the high school level. So just wanted to give her a shout out.
But these are sort of 3 of our central questions that we're trying to get input on from parents and students and school staff. And we just want to hold a little bit of space here before we go for if there are parents or students or former students or school staff out there from MMSD or other districts to share. What is your school lunch? Why are you participating now? What would make you more likely to participate, or for your kids to participate? What would you want more or less of? And then last but not least, the idea of building trust and confidence in the school program. Josh Perkins, the food service director from MMSD, couldn't be here today, but he's active in our group. And this is something that he has been really quick to offer up, the idea that, we didn't have a great start to the school year. There were a lot of challenges around, the federal support ending and needs being great. But ultimately, we need to build trust and confidence with families and with students. What can we do?
I'd like to make a comment as far as what shows up on our computer, our system. The current system that we have right now, we realize that it does not do the best as far as capturing what is actually being offered in the schools. So I believe it was last week, our communications department, they actually have rewritten the menu.
Within the next week or so, a survey will actually be pushed out to like all of the high schools. So it's not going to be like 70 students. Like it'll actually like get the level of traction that like the student climate survey and stuff gets. But yes, there is a group, Sophia and friends at Memorial, and also a few other students that they've recruited from West have been doing a photo voice project to document their school meal experience. And I think that's really great to have that youth involvement and advocacy. I guess I feel like it's very important for the district to be taking this on themselves and using some of their own research capacity to treat this like an issue that matters. So I'm excited about that. Just wanted to plug how comprehensive the effort is. And I'm hoping that they'll be able to do something similar at the elementary and middle schools later on, but the choice was to focus on the high schools first.
Yes, I just wanted to speak a little bit to the supply chain issue because it has gotten so much better, but it's still a huge issue. And that is my thing too, is I don't want to lose the trust of our families and our kids. And if they expect a chicken patty and they get something else, then that could be a tragic thing for a kindergartner. So one of the things, like right now, I'm unable to get my whole muscle chicken patty, and I've been having to get a McChicken, which I'm not proud of serving, and nor do I want them to think that is what we normally serve. But I also need to use up my USDA Foods chicken. Basically, we get a spreadsheet from our supplier, and we're playing the lottery. It says we got this truck coming in on Thursday, and it's got 185 cases. So we're all fighting to get the product that we want. And unless you have time to watch that spreadsheet, it's very, very difficult. So I think A lot of the processors have cut their SKUs in half, if not more, because school food is not profitable for them. And they're basically focusing on their commercial markets and then cutting their lines down. So it's been really, really hard for schools, and it's really hard to get the good food that we want. So I just want